Jay. Welcome to our latest webinar in our Ask the Experts series. Today we'll be discussing an important topic and something we're hearing in a lot of board rooms and board discussions, as well as from our residents these days. And that's where we're seeing as a result, it's really amped up, if you will, as a result of the pandemic. People from all over the US, coast to coast, and of course the Northeast, are moving into our neighborhoods, into our community in the Southeast US. That's placing an increased demand on condominium and homeowners associations, from utilities to amenities and staffing as well. It's also a good bonus, if you will, from all of our unit owners here who have seen their property values increase as a result. So a lot of good news and a lot of great topics today. Our panel of experts will share best practices for managing this influx of residents and meeting expectations in service, in amenities, and lifestyle, as well as resident events. My name is Bill Worrell. It's so great to be here again today and to see everyone. I am a director at First Service Residential, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A option on the control panel. We also have a list of questions already pre-submitted by many of you, so thank you for that. We'll be monitoring that throughout the program today. And then, of course, there's no need to take notes. Feel free to take notes if you'd like. However, we are recording this session as usual. And for everyone here, we will provide a recording of this session subsequent to completion today. So you can feel free to focus and relax and enjoy the session today. So we've got a full program, a lot to talk about, and we'll dive right in. Please allow me now to introduce our expert presenters. We'll start with Tabitha Lesmarie. Tabitha is a leader in our residential hospitality division at First Service Residential. Tabitha, good morning.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning.
Nice to have you. Of course, next we have Jay Parker. Jay is the CEO of the Florida brokerage at Douglas Elliman Real Estate. Jay, thanks so much for your time today.
Bill, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I look forward to sharing our thoughts.
Excellent. And Amy Sanchez. Amy is a president of Central Florida at First Service Residential. Amy, thanks so much for being here today.
Looking forward to covering these important topics.
Excellent. And Yorgos Vlahos. Yorgos is the area manager in Florida for Live Unlimited. Yorgos, thanks so much for being here as well.
Good job pronouncing my name, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I practiced it 6 or 8 times this morning, so thank you for that. Okay, we'll jump right on in. A great conversation we have set up for today and a lot of great information, as mentioned. So real life examples, as well as what we're seeing, as well as some data, real hard data that's going on today. So Jay, I'd love to kick off with you and your perspectives and from your background. What trends are you seeing here in the Southeast? The market is certainly white hot. It has exploded. Where are people coming from and why? And I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Well, thank you, Bill. And it's really a pleasure to be speaking with all of you on this important panel and to be talking to the clients and residents of First Service buildings. I've had a great experience working with you. I figured I'd start off with that. I think we all know now that we're living through what I believe is an unprecedented transformation of the South Florida market. And for those of you in other markets that are seeing this type of change, and there are others, it's genuinely something that I think is more meaningful than the boom bust cycles we've seen historically in at least the Florida market. We saw movement starting really at the beginning of tax reform. And the movement I'm referring to is different than the normalized transition, which was more empty nesters, retirees, sort of the last stop before heaven kind of movement where we always saw people retiring into South Florida or ultimately buying second homes or investment properties. The move that we saw since the tax reform was the beginning of the transformation. People saying, hey, you know, I'm going to save so much money because of taxes living in Florida that it really is incumbent upon me for wealth preservation to really make that move. And with that movement, we saw many of our developers throughout the state of Florida in particular making movements in their products and their strategies to make sure that they align with the discerning needs and expectations of those buyers. And they couldn't have been more right. We saw movement, we saw momentum, we saw people making this their primary residence as opposed to that second. And quite frankly, we always believe that the first home is the most important. It's the least likely to be sold in times of desperation or times of need or times of economic flux. All of that changed dramatically with COVID. We saw the first month or so of COVID as a flight to anything that was in control, a controlled environment. People coming from primarily the Northeast at that point, looking for homes where they could control their four walls, so to say, where they could move into their own pool, where they could go for a walk in their own neighborhood. And it quite frankly paused the condo sector because there was a lot of uncertainty. What would we be able to control in a condo building? Would we be able to ride in an elevator? Would the virus move through the air vents? And it was quite a fear, not only the pandemic, but the uncertainty that we saw. But very quickly, what we saw was prices went through the roof in the single family home space, the likes of which I've never seen, and quite frankly, I feel is highly sustainable. And very quickly from there, people realized, hey, it's safe to live in a condo building. Companies like First Service went to extensive depths to make sure that doors were being opened, masks were being worn, and elevators were coming up with strategies to allow you to move within them without touching things. And once again, we saw the condo market start to really benefit from the influx of buyers. But then something else happened. We saw buyers continuing to come from the Northeast, markets like New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, but then California started making a big move into our market. We've done a lot to try to attract those buyers, particularly in areas like Miami, but then it started to spread because people realized not only did we now have real estate assets that resonated with their needs in terms of quality, sophistication, density, size, space, amenitization, but also living in Florida, it was pretty amazing. It wasn't just the lifestyle, it wasn't just the taxes, it was the culmination of all aspects of our society, from culture to restaurants to hospitals to education. We've really raised the bar in all of those areas. And I think we're going to see significant long-term transformational benefits as a result. I've never seen a stronger market. And again, what's different in this market today versus the markets we've seen of the past is that the people that are coming here are moving here permanently, moving their families, moving their businesses, opening up new restaurants and new centers of influence. And I think that's going to ultimately trickle down from the very, very wealthy to every other part of our communities. And like I said before, in many of the discussions I've had, I feel like we're in the early innings of a double header and our team's winning by a landslide. So it's a great time to be a real estate owner. It's a great time to explore new markets because I think they too will start to, I'm referring to the Florida markets, Northern Florida, Northern Florida, Western Florida, Central Florida. All of those markets are going to see the benefits because the home or condo that you bought 4 or 5 years ago could be worth 200% more today than it was then. And you may not want to buy into the same market, but still stay in the state. So very, very bullish and very excited. And like I said, the word I would leave with is transformational.
That's great, transformational. A lot of really good points there. And Amy, would you like to, from the operations perspective, chime in on what you're seeing in these trends?
Yes, thanks, Bill. And Jay hit it right on the head in that everyone was really relocating to the south. I'll call it the southeast. So certainly Florida, but also you can summarize and include Georgia in the mix also. Relocating to these areas to take part in what the lifestyle was. You had the ability to go outside. You had the ability to still have some level of exposure, even though there was concerns about engagement and people engagement. And most of our homeowners often had a good portion of secondary investments in this area. And what we saw was if this was their secondary home, they quickly made it their primary residence, right? Preferring to be out of this location as opposed to whatever their primary location was. So we saw a lot of that movement. which created a pretty large shift in the way that communities were supporting their homeowners. You had more people in the homes, you had more people in their condos, you had more people interested in utilizing the amenities. And from a resale perspective, we saw homes with pools and access to comprehensive amenities just move that much faster. And so it really took, as everybody started taking a step back and saying, look, where do I want to live? How do I want to live? What type of lifestyle is it that I want? And that's really shifted the entire culture around people's preference to live, to work, to engage in the homes where they choose to reside at and what that looks like for them, which makes amenities and how a management community, how a professionally managed community is run, all that much more important for consumers today in the Southeast market. It's what we hear about all the time. It's what our boards are talking about, right? From a perspective of what can we do long-term to enhance the property values within our communities? What can we do to improve the amenities that are supported by each of these communities to ensure that homeowners are really utilizing them? Tennis courts, where you might have 8 tennis courts deep, is that, you know, the best, highest and best use of those amenities? How can we enhance them so that they get used more frequently? All of those things are now becoming part of the long-term strategy planning of our boards. It's certainly on the top of mind for homeowners and buyers alike.
Excellent. That's the key is now it's permanent residence, where that's changed from the past. Jay, another follow on, you mentioned before in our pre-discussion that, and you're correct, over the years we've seen booms and busts in Florida. What is your perspective on this trend now? Do you think this has legs? Do you think this is sustainable?
I've never seen anything like it. I've been in this market for 20 plus years, and the dynamics that were driving the previous booms, I think, were artificial. You saw every element of our community, primarily, you know, we were known as a condominium-based state, basically. You know, the investment, the booms, the busts were all condos. They were cookie cutter products. They were high density buildings. They were low threshold to investment, and they were usually a low deposit structure for someone to sign a contract. Today, it's very, very different. Our developers are requiring anywhere between 40 and 50% deposits on what is, in many cases, multi-million-dollar product. The people that are buying here now are not looking to flip contracts. They're looking to buy end user products. The demand in our markets, and we measure this, and you're welcome to explore this on a monthly basis on element.com. If you look in the market report section, we look at monthly contract reports, which is really the only way to look into the future. You can look at a quarterly report, which looks backwards, but a signed contract report is really looking forward. And what we're evaluating is how many new contracts are being signed each month, year over year. Now, as we get into the months of May and June, we were in the thick of the pandemic. Our market was seeing explosive growth. But here this year, May and June over last year, May and June, huge increase in number of new contracts. So you can see that this is not just pandemic driven. This is creating a snowball effect that is unlike anything I think has ever happened in this market. Similarly, it's the quality of buyers. We've always talked about this notion of 1,000 people a day moving into the state of Florida, but we never really looked deeply into who those 1,000 were. It's one thing if those thousands are retirees spending less, looking to buy smaller, versus primary home buyers that are in the middle or the beginning of their career with tremendous wealth. The people that are moving here now, the last number I heard, don't quote me on it, but I heard it yesterday, 480,000 domiciles transferred from New York to Florida since the beginning of this year, a huge number. They're very, very wealthy people. I'm sitting in our Palm Beach office today. I think Palm Beach is probably the most significant market maybe in the world today, with less than 2 months of inventory and prices continuing to skyrocket. These are not fly-by-night buyers. These are people that are coming here to raise their families, to live their lives, and to build upon the momentum that we're seeing in this state. So I firmly believe that we are in a period of extraordinary growth, and I think that it's a market that shows tremendous opportunity, unlike many other regions in the world. You know, it's in many ways like a Monaco of the Americas. This is a place that anyone that can be here wants to be here, and there's just not that much space for everybody to be here. So I don't think this is a boom bust historic type of moment. People had said to me, wait until, April and season's over, or May and season's over. I mean, we're going to have our strongest month this month in June with over $1.5 billion in transaction volume just in the state of Florida. These are extraordinary numbers. I mean, just extraordinary. And quite frankly, our pipeline going into the summer is just as strong. So it's something unlike we've ever seen. And I really firmly believe that, excuse me, the products are going to continue to raise in value. Inventory will come up, but it's only going to come up because pricing is going to drive sellers to the market. It's not because there's new inventory being developed as rapidly as we would like. Something else that, by the way, I would mention, historically, we would see in our new condo developments, sales velocity would be its slowest until the developer broke ground. For those of you that know, in Florida, typically the banks have a pre-sale requirement, so they're not going to lend you the money to build the building until you sell a certain number of units. Today, our pre-sales is so strong right out of the gates, which shows me that people are recognizing that this market is moving in an upward trajectory from a price perspective, and it makes sense to get in quick and hold your spot if you ever intend on selling out of something else and moving to somewhere else. So very, very bullish.
And I think,
what I think, Jay, if I can add, Bill, Jay, what I think is important for everyone on this call, whether or not you're a board member, a service provider, or a prospect in one of our communities, the reality is that you are spot on. This is here to stay. High occupancy levels, high demand for fully amenitized communities. We're seeing developers talk about that. We're seeing our purchasers really driving for that. This is a reality of what we're going to be facing for some time. Price points will continue to remain high, and the demand to be in communities that are well structured is going to be our future for the long run. So for us and our communities that we serve, what does that mean for us? Long-term visions of utility infrastructure is going to be a primary topic that we're going to start planning about. Do our communities have enough fiber to support high volume of occupancy, to get good access to cable and internet and programs along those lines? What does the technology infrastructure look like when you visit our clubhouses or when you visit our condominium buildings to act for ease of access, parking, concierge service? All of those things, the ease of use of these programs is going to be a predominant discussion for each of our communities. And that's a direct result of the high volume of occupancy that we're experiencing across the market.
no, excellent points. And I think that's really goes to support the genesis of today's conversation. It is about adjusting on a community by community basis to sustain and up our game, deliver at a higher level, deliver the services and amenities and the lifestyle people are really looking for, but also knowing and realizing those investments are for the long term. It's not just for the short term. And Jay, I love your data around the contracts too, because what we want to do is we want to be as proactive as possible. Your agents are out there dealing with it. Amy's clients are out there with the closings happening and receiving new residents and guests every day. And so we want to be proactive. We want to be prepared for that. Now, Tabitha, Amy just touched on some of the load on the communities with regard to technology, infrastructure, Wi-Fi, cable and internet packages. Just to make sure that your mute button is all set there, I'd love to flip it to you, and now let's dig right into some amenities and residential hospitality, which is your division. So with these virtual platforms and working from home, what technology needs and changes are you seeing in the communities as well?
Yes, thank you, Bill. So as Amy had mentioned, really that Wi-Fi and the high bandwidth power, within the pandemic, the residents were stuck in their apartments or in their homes. So to be able to go, downstairs to use their amenities, work from the pool, be able to, send out their papers and work through emails, and to ensure from beach to pool to lobby and to all these areas, as sometimes we've heard from our buildings that there's not a lot of Wi-Fi, the technology part, from valet, the ease of getting your car. Amy mentioned the ease of just technology to be able from one button to be able to get your package, request something, not sometimes talk to somebody, cable packages, and really seeing within on site, working with our boards for the needs of our residents, understanding who our residents are, what they do expect, and the culture that they really strive to have. So within, you know, those amenities and technology, it's really key. Even booking rooms, from spa rooms to, you know, tennis courts, it's you know, dialing on the phone and calling the front desk. Our residents expect more. They just want to button away using apps, whatever the case is, and with Yorgis's team, you know, to book amenities as well.
So we're hearing a lot of that, right, Tabitha? With your teams really front of the house, arrival experience, very interactive with all residents and their guests, and prospective buyers, right? When Jay's team arrives to the property, they are asking for, do we have strong Wi-Fi in the common areas? Are we able to get our car without leaving the apartment to use the app, or to book a spa room, or to book some time in the fitness center, et cetera? So that's been critically important and something to look at. I know a lot of communities have done these upgrades already in their packages and in their infrastructure. So it's a hardware and a service delivery. Amy, shifting back to you as well from a staffing perspective, what are you seeing with regard to communities and boards and management with regard to increasing staffing as well to enhance service delivery at the property?
Well, I think a lot of people are starting to ask the question of, you know, do I enjoy the experience at my
Amy, I think you froze just a second.
in the front desk? Am I greeted by name? Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Thank you.
Okay. So, you know, a lot of people are starting to ask and be curious and really desire a higher level of service. And that's where it becomes paramount that teams are fully trained with a hospitality mindset. And that's where Tabitha's team really comes into play, in being able to be greeted by name, being able to be served in a timely fashion, leveraging technology where possible so that it's not a fully person-to-person interaction for those who prefer to do something quickly late at night or on the weekends. All of the entire customer experience is being questioned from a perspective of what level of service. And the reality, Bill, is that we're seeing a lot of people say that we want a higher level of service. We choose to live here. We're choosing to take part and take advantage. That's why we choose to live in an association, be it an HOA or a condominium. And so having capable and trained staff that have that mindset is critical. And we're seeing a lot of boards and communities invest in that area. They're saying, you know what, I would like to staff more from a clubhouse perspective so we can offer that level of concierge-esque service. We'd like to look into food and beverage programs so that we can have poolside delivery of drinks or ordering of food. They want to offer a fully comprehensive live, eat, enjoy where you're at in your community. All of those things are being looked at. And from a technology perspective, the sky is the limit in desire right now. The association industry really has to take a look at how can we continue to get better. And that's where we partner with great groups like Igor's, and he'll get into a bit more of the amenities and what the programming is that they specialize in. But taking a look at how we interface with our communities from a technology perspective is absolutely top of mind, and doing so with a hospitality flair is critical.
Yeah, excellent, Amy. Thank you. And I'd like to stick with you for a moment. The next question that came in is interesting, and it goes along with, so first we begin with, how are communities providing these vastly increased Wi-Fi demands without breaking the bank? Certainly we have bulk buying with Comcast, et cetera. But along with that, an attendee today submitted a question with regard to how important has touchless access become within properties communities? What trends are there at gate and current access control solutions? And some thoughts around that. Amy, I'd love to get your perspective.
Yes, so access is very much a property by property discussion, and depending on the needs of the community and the long-term investment planning of the community will dictate how homeowners are going to enter the facilities or enter the property or the grounds. There's certainly a demand for touchless access. Gone are the days of, let me continue to get a decal to be able to enter in and through the property. We're moving in that direction. It's going to take some time for communities to adapt that newer technology, but even more important is having a system that can integrate that together so that the homeowner has an easy point of access to get the material that they need to be able to float through into the property. So certainly it's an important topic and conversation, and one that warrants long-term planning. This isn't, an overnight decision. You want to have a structured thought through what program works best for the needs of our community, and how are we going to plan for that? Is that part of our reserve structure? How are we going to handle the investment into that? And I will tell you that communities that are focused and united on making those additional investments, you're going to continue to remain cutting edge and against the competition and retain property values. So it's an important area of focus.
Bill, I'd like to add, I completely agree with everything Amy's saying, but I'll even go a step further and tell you that I think it's beyond the actual touch. It's more about the experience. And we're being asked to raise the bar in ways that are almost endless. Obviously, cost plays a factor, but I think technology, as we've discussed, allows costs to be mitigated to some extent because it can bring into play other elements that we may not have considered in the past. Things like really basic, having lights in common areas shut off when the rooms are not being used automatically. Using power grids in a more effective fashion to mitigate the allocation of usage. But to me, the experience is so highly impacted when you come to your elevator and it recognizes that in your eyes that you're going to unit 22 and the door opens, the button's already pushed, you get off your door into your unit, and even if it's in a private vestibule, opens up automatically because either it has some type of recognition software. And that's a pretty impressive experience for somebody. And I think what we're so excited about at our development marketing arm is the bar is being asked to be blasted open. I remember when I was a young kid, I used to come to Florida and the amenities were shuffleboard courts and things that they called a gym, which really was not much of a gym, and a card room. Today, every single square foot of a building is being highly capitalized upon and in many ways multifunctional. So that every use that you could possibly imagine an end user wanting to deploy is available. I know Tabitha and Amy would use the blow dry bars, as we talked about. There's actually rooms that are allocated for people to have their hair blower, not hairdresser, just someone come and blow dry their hair. Very small cost, but apparently a very important use. And so we love to engage in these workshops with clients and developers and first services representatives to understand how high can we push the bar. And in many ways, that elevation is not directly aligned with cost. Because like I said, we can mitigate the cost by using other great services and systems and technology. So I think the future is really, really exciting. We're moving into a real Jetson type of environment.
I totally agree with both of you. And Yorgos, we're going to come to you next. So thank you so much for your patience. But recently I had a conversation with a developer, and they were vetting some new technology around access control. And so we go through this and we walk through the process. We were actually able to find some of our clients in Chicago who are using the technology already today and vet that technology. So to the question of, does the technology change? Are the bandwidth requirements necessary? The answer is absolutely. And then what we need to look at is, back to Jay's point and Amy's point, that arrival experience, that hospitable experience that Tabitha delivers, and how do you best put that together with the right technology? So some folks absolutely want face-to-face interaction. Other folks like what technology does and they want to do more through technology. But when you really hit a home run in your community is when you're able to put both together to work in harmony. And that's when you really can can deliver that. So that's gate systems, that's front desk, that's elevator access, all the access controls across all the different communities. So Yorgos, I promised. I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead, please.
No, I just want to also add to that, that it's also the guests, so homeowners that are choosing to live in a community, it's also when they invite someone to their home, what their guest experience is like also. So, you know, what, and in my world, I typically specialize in mid-rise condominium buildings and garden style HOAs that have expansive lifestyle components to them. Lifestyle being activities, you know, where you've got wonderful activities for kids and for families to come together and really use the space, whether or not that's 4th of July events or, you know, big grand items like that. And a lot of our homeowners are really interested in, well, how do I get my guests into the community, right? What is that experience like? Do I have to call down to the security office and wait for 5 minutes on hold while they manually add that name? What is their experience like when they come through the gate? Do they have to wait a long time? So being able to enter in guests through a website app, so you can just add, oh, you know what, that's right, I've got Sarah coming to visit. Let me go ahead and put that information in the system. Our homeowners are expecting that now. And if they don't have that in place, that's an area of conversation for enhancement, because our group does have the technology to support that. So it's every aspect of the lifestyle experience that we've been talking about here, not only for our homeowners, but also when we invite guests to our home to visit and enjoy the space with us.
I totally agree. And just to close on that, people think about first and foremost the stakeholders in the community, the unit owners. But Amy, you're absolutely correct. They're demanding excellent high-level services for their guests as well. And then finally, of course, for potential buyers. Every stakeholder in every community absolutely has one thing in common. They love to see their property values increase. It's part of our mission to do that. So it is about that arrival experience. And if a buyer or a guest, everyone that comes and arrives at the property, at the community, wants to feel comfortable, safe, and have a little bit of a wow experience when they arrive home or potentially their new home. So excellent, good conversation there. And Yorgos, so you focus and Live Unlimited focus, your entire organization on amenities and service delivery within those amenities. So can you walk us through some of the shift of amenities and how expectations are actually being met here in the Southeast US? Give us a brief overview as well of Live, just to kind of set the stage as far as where your focus is. And we're just so happy to be partnering with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So really in terms of a shift, and what we're seeing is, and Tabitha really kind of touched on it, is that a lot of these residents are working remotely and therefore they're at home considerably more than before. We've talked about it already, and this has brought so much more of a demand on the existing staffing levels and usage of these building amenities. So what was normal before, you had these beautiful amenity spaces that quite often lay dormant with limited usage. And that was due to a couple of reasons: low occupancy and very limited to no activation of these spaces. And we, as Amy has been talking about, people want to see these spaces activated. They're at home more, they want that sense of community and to feel a value of living in that property. So this is where our company, Live Unlimited, that's where we come in. And we really specialize in the management and activation of these amenity spaces. And that's by delivering that premium level of luxury hospitality and programming. So it's how we've made a name for ourselves, particularly up in New York, including in many first service properties. And the great thing about us is that we have many facets and we can tailor our services specifically to a property. So you might be looking for fitness and wellness programming. So that, of course, is the group fitness classes, private fitness one-to-one instruction, the event programming, so fun and interesting events for the residents in the property, or adding a luxury concierge service to assist residents with any requests they might have. And that's 24/7. Gone are the days where it's 9 to 5 whenever the concierge is on site. It's 24/7 because we have the technological platform in place for residents to make a request to a virtual 24/7 concierge platform. So also on top of that, we do have a consulting arm, so we can assist with the design and the layouts of amenity spaces. So we can really work with a developer and also property management company to tailor the most appropriate package that's going to be most appealing to the demographic of that building. And of course, it's always going to have to fit within the budget. We understand that. And again, going back to it, I mean, more than ever, we know there's a real demand for upscale living. And the differentiator is to make your property stand out from the crowd by adding on these services, because this is an expectation with a lot of these new clients and residents moving in, particularly from the Northeast and the West Coast.
I think that's critically important, Yorgos. Can you dig a little bit deeper as well? When we look at a building or an HOA that has a clubhouse with certain amenities, so when you arrive and meet with a client, what are the first things that you look at? I have to believe that square footage matters, actual amenity spaces, what's already designed and built. And then do you also have a discussion about what could be possible, for example, at a community? So if you could take us a little bit through some of that and what that looks like based on what our residents are asking for these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's really important, of course, is the initial conversation has got to be what exactly are the current pain points in that building? What is it that residents are looking for? Is there a community aspect? Do they know their neighbors? Do they even want to have those kind of interactions? What kind of programming is already in place? What technology is already in place? It's really a deep dive and a question and answer session to really figure out what's going to be most beneficial for that property to bring that value. And we've talked about technology over and over again. It's what we keep on hearing. It's residents want to have the ability to have the ease of access, to not have to be picking up the phone all the time, to have to be coming to the front desk, for instance, to make a reservation. So this is something which kind of really speeded up during the pandemic. It was, the ability to use a technological platform to make a reservation for, say, they want to, book a dining request at the local restaurants, or they need to reserve an amenity space for a work meeting, being that they're working from home. And this is something which we really saw very prevalent during the pandemic, and it's going to stay as well. People want to have that ability, instead of having to go through someone, but to have the ability to instead click a button through their phone and be able to have access to all these services which they might not have had before as easily.
Very good. That's a great overview. It's certainly exciting to be able to take things to the next level, and it is still a community by community process. It's not one size fits all, certainly in this business. So Tabitha, I'd like to shift to you now and go back to the staff. Can you tell us what your division in residential hospitality is doing to train and develop the property, the on-site staff, to offer these elevated levels of hospitality and service? Can you talk us through that?
Yes, most definitely. So we are truly redefining the condominium world by enacting luxury 5-star hospitality concepts into all of our condos and our HOAs, understanding the value of just truly cultivating those interpersonal relationships to unite the teams for the common goal of just delivering exceptional service. And this is no matter the budget and no matter if it's HOA, luxury high-rise, or mid-rise. And within our teams, when we do go on site and train via Zooms, it's that understanding hospitality truly is with the genuine interaction. So, as Jay mentioned, technology is key, yet it's the experience. And with the experience of technology goes hand in hand with the staff and the associates that we have on site. And this comes from our management to our line staff. And within First Service, we're fortunate we have our amazing culture that really backs it up. It's our global service standards, which is the blueprint to success in residential hospitality, and understanding and cultivating that culture of success. It's within our trainings, it's a focus on applying and sustaining those behaviors within the team. So from management all the way to front of house and back of house, as well with our valet teams, our security teams, any third-party teams that we have. We are all one team. We are all First Service, and we are here to serve our residents. And once you really, sorry, go ahead.
No, please continue.
No, and it's with training, it's also understanding that every property is different. Every HOA is different. Our residents are different. The culture on those properties are different, and the expectations. So it's once we have a complete understanding of the property, is that we cater to their hospitality needs and service. And it shows that everywhere can be a little different, but the philosophy of hospitality stays the same.
And I think that's a great takeaway. We have a lot of board members on the phone today, on the line today. We also have a lot of industry professionals. But what I heard you say is the platform with core values are global service standards to build on that. And then I also heard you say, and I think this is critical, I don't want it to get lost, it's not just about the front desk. It's about the residential hospitality training for the housekeeping, for your maintenance crews and groundskeepers, and even third-party providers, the security company or the valet company, even at the gatehouse, right? So it has to transcend, I think, throughout the entire community, no matter who's delivering what service. So I want to make sure I get that in there. And then Amy, this next question along the same lines comes to you. This hospitality training and service delivery certainly does vary from community to community. It's not the same everywhere. So can you run us through some of the options that you've seen from the top level to the more basic style of service delivery in those communities as well?
Sure. So yes, it is very customized, but there is one constant that Tabitha hit on, and that's the quality of the interaction when there is some interface going on. And so that's where the training program becomes cornerstone. But with respect to specific examples, there's really three primary areas to hone in on. You have comprehensive lifestyle HOA communities that are sprawling HOAs. Some might be gated or ungated. They're typically bound by a clubhouse. And the interaction that homeowners experience when they come through the clubhouse, there are, you want to be greeted by a front desk or a receptionist that welcomes you to the grounds, things along those lines. Level of service at that property is certainly going to look different from a community that has an unmanned gate access and let's say 160 unit HOA. The experience through and onto the property might look a little bit different because you won't have as much human interaction, but the convenience and ease still of getting into the property, the convenience of being able to connect with a team member who offers that level of connection and touch point is still just as paramount. And so taking that information, spreading it across the organization, which is built upon, as Tabitha indicated, our global service standards. That is what unites us as a group and what helps keep service level consistency across all of our properties. And then the third aspect is really the comprehensive condo world and the high-rise division, which is a big area where Tabitha and her team helps to focus on. And that is a whole nother set of customer service experience and demand, which includes the volume of personnel and staff that are supporting the community. And that really does come down to financial constraints for what a community wants to offer, what that experience is going to be, and how it's blended with technology that we've been talking about throughout this call. Whether or not you leverage a butterfly system where you can get into the property electronically by either typing in a code or you've got some level of recognition and be able to get in through the property into your unit, or if you're greeted by a concierge front desk. And I will tell you that it is very specific per property. Some communities enjoy that level of human interaction. They would like for someone to help take their keys, park their vehicle, get to their home. And some communities are saying, you know what, we're a bit more modernized than that. We're not looking for that level of service. We would like to take that investment, and instead of having a high service front person touch, we'd like to reinvest that into maybe support and food and beverage on at our pool area and take that personnel and funding and move it to that area. The overall arching point here is that for service residential, and one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be part of the organization, supports communities of all of those sizes. Whether or not it's a smaller HOA unmanned gate or a large comprehensive property, we have the solutions to be able to support that. And we get inspired by and partner with the Yorgos of the marketplace and the J of the marketplace that says, hey, look, this is what we're seeing out there as well. How can we get even better? And that keeps First Service ahead of the market.
That's great. And I'd like to pull Jay in as well, because, and this is really for Jay to start us off, Amy, and of course, Tabitha and Yorgos, really the whole panel today. We're talking about service delivery, Jay, and your teams are out there focusing on buyers, but also sellers. How important is that when you're bringing a buyer to a property, right? Or you're prepping a seller to sell and you're marketing those units, developer, existing, et cetera. Can you give us a sense of just how important that is to the ultimate value of that home?
I think there's no question about it that the experience is critical to the ultimate buyer's or seller's success in appreciating the quality of the product or the value that's derived. We pride ourselves when working with new developments in creating an experience, even if the building is completed or if it's a dream, to make sure that that experience resonates with what the party we're seeking to impress is looking for. We talked a little bit about hospitality, and Tabitha was talking about creating that hospitality experience. One of the most prolific elements of condo living today is the branded hospitality concepts, the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carltons, the Amans, you name it. And the nice thing about that, and what has helped us so much in the sales of those products, is that people can identify with the experience. And to me, that's everything. We live where we feel best. We talk about things like wellness, which has become a critical component of everything we're doing in all of our markets. One of the most critical components of wellness is the experience. How do you feel? What makes you feel good about where you live? And I have to tell you, we've seen many of our projects doubling down on that experience, so that, your valet, it may seem like a very simple entry level kind of component, but the experience that you receive when being greeted at your car is extraordinary. The experience that you have when leaving your vehicle, when picking up your car, is as important. Things like a little water bottle in the car when you're leaving a luxury residence, it goes an extraordinary long way. And maybe it's not even leaving it there, asking somebody, can we offer you a bottle of water? On a hot summer day in Florida, that's quite an experience, and it's not consistently deployed. Of course, it depends upon the association that we're talking about and the amount of costs that association wants to bear. But it doesn't really matter to me at what level you're at. It's perfecting the process, which I know, Bill, we've talked about a lot. You're constantly working to perfect whatever level of experience your buildings are delivering. And to me, having, if you have no service person at the entrance to a condominium, then obviously you can improve that. But if you do have someone there, then that someone should be trained in a way that their culture is consistent with what people living there want to experience. And I would say that is almost as important as the quality of the product is the experience you have in going there. And so I think Tabitha's role in the hospitality component of what First Service does is becoming more and more relevant. And frankly, with us being aware of the fact that so many of our new buyers are coming in from markets like New York, I mean, there's sitcoms about, the experiences people have living in a doorman building in New York. I mean, they used to say that your doorman would know everything about your life, that he would pick up your dry cleaning, arrange for your children to be met at the school bus. I mean, that type of experience is what we need to be going towards. And the nice thing for us, and particularly for services, is technology is making that much, much easier. There's facial recognition technology that doorman could be reminded every single day about who's walking in the door. Ultimately make a list of their regular guests, so that every time Bill comes to visit me, my doorman is saying, hey, Bill, it's nice to see you again, even though he may have only met Bill once. So to me, like I said, in every aspect of what we do at Douglas Elliman Development Marketing, the experience is everything. And the better that experience, the more excited people are about living there. And by the way, one thing that wasn't mentioned, if I could digress for 1 second, is proximity. We talk about that a lot. As our state becomes more densely populated, where you live is important in conjunction with where you like to live. Not your home, but where you go. Where do you travel to every day? Where's your office? Where's your most favorite place to go and be entertained? Do you engage in recreational activities? That's become a major factor for us. But unlike what we've seen historically in South Florida, people are willing to explore living in different areas if the product that they have matches up with the lifestyle that they want to live. So we're becoming a market of pods. It's not just one place that people want to be. There's lots of places that people want to be. And within those places are a lot of different resources, from restaurants to other elements of lifestyle, making transportation or long distances less a part of your day-to-day life. The last place you want to be is in a car going from one place to another for a long period of time.
Right.
I think it's, Bill, if we can spend a few more minutes on that.
Sure.
What Jay said is so important for board members and community owners to really think about. Homeowners today are choosing to look for lifestyle over location, right?
Absolutely.
That is a massive change in buying behavior, and even that is going to completely shape the way that we want to reinvest back into the communities, from an amenity perspective to an engagement perspective. I mean, that's just epic. And two, we're seeing shifts and movements where homeowners are saying, you know what, let me explore Southwest Florida. You know what, let me explore different areas in the outskirts around Orlando or Central Florida, or even further north into the Panhandle and areas that are a little outside in Georgia. And so it's no longer, hey, I must be in downtown. So for some, it might be. It is 100% about the lifestyle that the homeowner wants to live. Which means that we've got to take another look of how we are structured, how the communities are structured, and where you want to invest the maintenance fees and dues. And that will drive what the future looks like for each community. And so just wanted to chew on that a little bit, because that's different than what we've ever known, Jay. It's not like people are competing with the same behaviors as before. It's a total shift.
Absolutely. And perfect, Tabitha. That sets you up, because I have a note here with another question. So can you walk us through, so with regard to that and where people want to go and what they want to do, how have you used the preference sheets to help support that? That's a specific, concrete takeaway for our audience today.
Yes. So with, preference sheets and really the steps on how our teams really focus on the service deliveries by seeing it through the eyes of the resident and understanding that this is the home where our residents live here and they want to feel at home with that high level service. And this book ties in with management, is challenging our associates every day to be better every day, meaning to go a step above, to see this preference, to get to know our residents and to understand what the culture of their building is. It's clearly and openly setting those expectations within our staff to understand that they are there to really make that building be next level or HOA. And it's understanding and really putting that culture of service, but knowing the purpose versus the function for our staff and for our management. Within the preference sheets, it's understanding that there is a bigger picture to this. There is a reason why we're doing this. And it's giving, that feedback with, price per square foot. What are we doing as first service? You are part of something bigger, and what the impact it has on our residents to just be hospitable, and that they're not just a warm body in a chair, from pool, from housekeeping, but it's in those little details. This comes with commitment, that attention to detail, the accountability part, and being a brand ambassador and having ideas and benchmarking. We are so fortunate to be in a company from the HOA world that Amy supports as a president to High Rise here downtown in Miami, from preference sheets to seeing what can we do to be better every single day, to really benchmark, to speak within our buildings and our communities, and understanding that success is just all in the details, and it comes from something as simple as a preference sheet for our residents.
And I've seen those preference sheets make big differences in both existing and developer communities. Jay and I recently worked on one where they wanted to get across the bridge very easily to Worth Avenue, or to the airport and transportation, or to even, downtown area. And so there was a big investment that was made into not just a Mercedes van. We had a driver on staff at the property to take them, but really the van was outfitted with all of the amenities and plenty of space so that your whole family didn't have to get in the car. And we would take you to that specific area. So I really like that. I think it's a great best practice, and thank you for sharing that. Yorgos, this is going to go to you as well now. I'd like to pull you in. Jay mentioned wellness. What specific takeaways can we have today with regard to activation of amenity spaces that you have focused on through Live Unlimited? And I know you've spent a lot of time speaking about the entire wellness factor here. I think you might be on mute, but if you could address those specifics, that would be great.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of touching on what Tabitha was talking about as well about the service delivery, and Jay talking about those expectations of those residents, that influx of residents moving into our market. You know, they expect to be handholded. They expect you to know, you know, about their personal life to an extent. And that's something which was kind of really missing down here. And it's something which we really, you know, we train and develop our staffing as well. And that's from everyone, from the group fitness instructors to the private trainers to the porters. It's imperative for them to understand, like, they're delivering that 5-star level of customer service, because that's the new expectations. And again, it's what sets us apart from the rest in our market, because we know down here, they like to say that they're delivering a certain expectation, but do you actually receive that? Most of the time, probably not. And that's something we're really kind of installing. It's what we do through Live, and it's obviously it plays a part with service, because that's exactly what you do on your end as well. And, you know, during the pandemic, it really kind of highlighted to us that residents and people, they want to stay connected. And, you know, people were shut down, they were locked down, they weren't able to meet up in groups. And that was something we kept on hearing from residents. They need something to do, you know, they're stuck at home. And a lot of the times they have their kids with them, they're stressed, they need that form of escapism. So we really focused on the engagement aspects and what could we do to, you know, elevate their level of living that they're currently going through. So what we did is we switched all of our services onto a full virtual platform. So they had access to, you know, we put on all sorts of interesting events and activations for our residents, you know, just touching on the fitness and wellness. They also had access to virtual group fitness classes. They could get private one-to-one instruction as well for yoga and meditation. Meditation, we saw a huge uptick, of course, because people were very stressed. But, you know, we're a social species at the end of the day. People need that social connection. And, you know, moving out of the pandemic, and of course, you know, Florida has really sped up that process compared to, you know, the northeastern states. We're seeing that, you know, that demands come now from the other side, from a virtual platform, moving back into in-person. People want to be connected again. Even so, we also understand that there is also that, you know, that part of the community who are also a bit wary and a bit mindful. So we have a hybrid of the two where, you know, we can provide access to either the full virtual platform, or, you know, they can have access to everything being in person, or a hybrid of the two. Going back to it, we can tailor all of our operations specific to an individual property. All the questions are asked, what are the residents asking for? We can send out a survey, for instance, to find out, you know, what are they missing? What do they want to see in their property? And then we can tailor our operations and services specific to exactly what they're looking for.
That's great, Yorgos. Thank you for that. And some key examples there. One of the key components that I like that you said was that being able to deliver through virtual platforms as well as in person, based on those specific needs. Some folks they'd love to get engaged with other people face to face. Other folks are still a little tentative, and they'd like to be able to have that online option and do it in their own home. So thank you for that. Amy, we have a couple of questions here as well coming in with regard to the 55 and better communities. Certainly this is a lot in your product segment, your business unit, traditional, as well as all the work we do right in the newer Del Webb communities, which are set up that way. Can you, these questions are specific to, are there any differences specifically in those 55 and better communities? Do we start with the same platform? Perhaps you can give us some perspective for our audience.
Yes, so it's a very important topic for us because 55 and over communities are going to continue to grow and expand. We're seeing that from both a developer and a pre-existing community's perspective. And we hear often, well, over 55 55 and over communities may not be so interested in technology. We're actually seeing a slightly different trend than that. 55 and over communities do want access to technology. They do want to be able to have the app on their phone where they can go pay their maintenance dues or place a work order or put in there that there's going to be a guest or even reserve an amenity. And so really what it becomes is a partnership at each community to define what and how should operations look like into the future for each particular property. And the newer communities that are being developed already talking about technology and how that's going to interface. And so if you're a pre-existing community, the question should be where and how we're going to allocate dollars. Oftentimes you're talking about some level of fixed income, so costs becomes a real focus point on how to invest in the future. That still, every community should still be talking about long-term planning, and part of interfacing and technology and how the management team can support that should be a part of that conversation.
No, absolutely. So there are a lot of parallels there, and that's very important. We are very close. I still have a number of questions. Thank you all for submitting your questions. I do want to respect everyone's time. So any open questions that we do have, for those of you that submitted online, we'll make sure that we address those and get you the answer back, or any property specific questions as well that we see. So I just want to now a couple more items. Amy, Tabitha, Jay, Yorgos, thank you all so much for your expertise and your time. What you can see on this panel today is really subject matter experts, industry professionals in their area of expertise. And it does take a team, right, to deliver all of this to every single community. So our sincere thank you for your time and sharing your expertise today. And for our attendees, thank you all as well for your time today. Remember, we will be sending and having the recording of today's session available to you. Feel free to share with your colleagues as well as other stakeholders in your community. And I sincerely hope that you found some helpful information today, a couple of takeaways that you can take back to every single community that's out there. And as things continue to shift, we will do everything we can and continue to stay proactive and ahead of these trends. So you can count on us for that. So with that, thank you all so very much. Enjoy your lunch, your Thursday, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.